Welcome. Ziggy1X here with another NieR reincarnation video. There have been some big changes to the game, and I've been away, work, life, other things. But there's some changes that we need to talk about. And the first one is just how invalid my Recollections of Dusk video has become in the past 2 weeks, because boy oh boy have there been some changes to this game mode. So I'm going to start this first by breaking down the difference between what Recollections of Dusk was in my prior video versus what it's becoming now. So just to give you a brief update, we are in the Lars, the newest Recollections of Dusk content here right now. But they've also gone back and retroactively changed the Theo challenge, which was the first challenge we got, which was originally what I made my video about. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about these changes. First, I'm going to jump into this first level here of the Lars Chamber of Dusk. So there have been several concerns that have come up online and maybe with others within the community that the game mode has so fundamentally changed that it basically is more difficult for newer players to get into. Let's talk about this. Now, originally, there's a lot of things that have changed, by the way, since that first video. This button right here was not originally there. Now, I didn't build these teams. I'm just going to say this right now. This is all built. These guys have all of their bonuses already in place. So why are these teams built? Well, before in Recollections of Dusk, you actually had to save your teams in your team loadout profile if you wanted them to transfer directly over to Recollections of Dusk, because what it would do is it would look at your profile, your loadout, it would pick a team that matched the requirements for the challenge, and then it would just slot those in. That's not the case anymore, and this is a good, big good time saving change. What's happening is it's saving the loadouts within its own little registry. And so instead of requiring you to fulfill a loadout in your regular roster, it's now doing it independently of everything else, which is amazing because this is an exact team that I used on the last challenge. And so without any planning, without any preparation in this video, I just walked into the room and I'm ready to do all 3 of the challenges because I had completed all 3 of these challenges with the same loadouts, with the same barriers and everything else. So that's an excellent change. But here's the other thing that you notice, and this is also the case for Theo. Theo being a win challenge means that she is going to be locked, the team loadouts are going to be locked to fire. What does this mean? Okay, you can see here all these challenges are dark. This means that every single one of these required teams here, we're going to just jump into this one and show you an example here. Every single one of these units here has to be a light primary unit. And you can see that in the little symbol that's up in the top left there, they have the light symbol. So the only characters, the only costumes that can go into this specific room for Lars, they can only be primary light affinity. Okay, here's where things start to get a little bit challenging. So what happens here, I've got a well-developed account. I've been playing since early on when the game released, not day one, but early on. And so I've had time to flush out my roster. There have been a lot of characters released over time. This is an advantage that I have over newer or returning players who maybe took a break or just now coming into the game. While there are a lot of opportunities to pull units and costumes and weapons that are absolutely bonkers right now, that's only going to give you a very small roster, which means you're going to be very limited in what you can accomplish with the Recollections of Dusk. Now, you still would have been before, but the difference before is that the weapons were what was limited, and the characters, the costumes, could be across the board for any element. So their primary element attribute, affinity, did not limit you to being able to use them in any given challenge. Now it does. And since the costumes are typically more limited than the weapons, this kind of changes the way you work things. Originally, when I discussed this, I said you needed to have a full loadout of weapons, 3 for each costume, 5 challenges, okay? That's a lot of weapons. And each of them had to be had to have that barrier of some kind so that you can basically protect your team against whatever was incoming, whether it be blind, whether it be reduced HP, any other number of things. And so with this being said, now we have a challenge here that requires only light. So you want to be using light primary weapons, and you want to, by the way, sub-weapons can be anything. You want to use the light primary because they're strong against the dark, but the weapons, the sub-weapons, can be anything. And so if you have, and since these are all light challenges, you can use those EX weapons that have 20% crit rate on them, just to beef up your team's damage a little bit, or your primary DPS's damage a little bit. You can slap those in there because you can reuse the weapons. And so that gives you a whole lot of flexibility on what you could do on the weapon side of things. Again, you're still limited by the characters, but here's the other thing that I've noticed. These challenges, generally speaking, and I'm going to start one right now just to kind of show you, the challenges feel like they become easier. Now, this could be due to a couple factors. They actually may have decreased the challenge of the challenges, or I've just got a really good light roster because I've invested a lot into my light roster, and there are some really banging good light DPS units and light support units. So we may see as time goes on, for example, my weakest element is wind. And so when a fire challenge comes around and I'm forced to use wind, we may actually see that I suffer a little bit because I don't have NieR's Yuri. I don't have, I don't have Mach, not Udil, oh my goodness. Yuzuki. I don't have these big wind DPS units. And so this really changes the way things are played. Oh, I probably should turn on auto, shouldn't I? All right, anyways, so point being is that the challenge has changed. Is it a good change or a bad change? Well, I'll tell you what right here. For the most part, this is a really good change because it changes the way things are optimized. You can see I'm just putting it on auto right now. This is the very hard chamber. Now, the only thing here that I'll point out here in a minute is that every other chamber has only required 3 teams to get through them. And before they required typically 4 and 5 teams to get through, which means you get to get by on less characters, which is great, less costumes. This last challenge on the very hard does require 5 full teams, okay? That's a lot. That's a lot of element-only weapons or element-only characters. And so this is where the challenge for newer players is going to come in. But the challenges, I think, are easy enough. And we will see here. Maybe I'm just going to wipe this sucker and I'm doing this for the first time in real time right now, and I'm just kind of letting it happen. So maybe these challenges have been diminished enough in their potency to where we will just be able to waltz on in here and maybe sometimes in some cases have a team of 2 and be able to finish the challenges. But the good news is that the last challenge with 5 full teams is only the last 2 awakening stones for Lars, which means it's his awakening 4 and his debris, meaning that you still get the full benefit of Lars at awakening 3 with his 3rd passive. There we go, I just won. You still get the full benefit of Lars at awakening 3, so if you are planning on using him in the game, all you have to do is have 4 teams to finish. Okay, so this is something that you can build up over time. Now, what do I predict for the future with this guy? Well, I think that they are going to continue changing the challenges to reflect this, to be element only. So for Fio, again, she was wind. That means that your fire team, only fire primary units are going to be able to go into it. And in the case for Demos, who was fire, that means that water only units are going to be able to go into the challenges, and so on and so forth. So my review of all this. The challenges have become much, much easier. They become much more time intense friendly. They don't take hours to go through these challenges anymore, which was a part of the reason why I took my time going through these challenges. When the first 2 difficulties of Lars came out, I just went right through them. It was easy. And again, it was because they were limited to only light units, but I could use whatever weapons I wanted. And it saved my teams within the Recollections of Dusk system. So I didn't have to go into my other loadout roster to pull from that and build teams. I don't have to do that anymore, which is fantastic. The other thing I will point out here, if we go to this guy, the only character that is required in all of these challenges, since this is a Lars challenge, for the final door, Lars. That's it. That is the only specific character that is required, where before it would require characters in each of the loadouts, especially when you get into the very hard. It would require at least 2 specific characters per loadout, and you're doing that 5 times. Sometimes it would require all 3. And you're doing that 5 times, and some of the challenges were very difficult because of that, because it would require characters I don't have a whole lot of. It would require Argo. I really haven't invested a lot into Argo. It would require Theo. Theo, I haven't invested a lot into Theo, plus she's only got 1 or 2 really strong costumes. And a couple other things like that. So it would have Argo, Theo, and 1 other. And I'm just going, wow, this is a really tough challenge for me, because 2 characters that are required are really, really difficult. So I think this is going to prove to be easier in the end. And I think it's going to be proven to be much more user-friendly. I really like the change. That's where I'm going to leave it. It's optimized, it's clean, it works. The rewards, they're still there. Lars looks to be a banging good unit. His sword, again, another banging good arena weapon. So that's where I'm going to leave this. My review, great job, developers. This was a great change. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but once you get into the kind of how streamlined it is, it's going to move really smoothly. So that's my review and sort of breakdown for the Recollections of Dusk. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Have a good one. Bye.